All right, guys. So yesterday we covered the Ottoman Empire, and today we're going to look at the other major gunpowder empires. Also, make sure that you are following along in the book. Make sure that you're reading about it all because your book's going to talk about the Songhai Empire, which isn't very much. It's like half of a page, but it's not covered in here at all. And part of the reason for that is because, well, they just kind of pick up where Ghana left off. And then Mali picked up the pieces, and then the Songhai just kind of remains after them. So just be aware of that. You're going to need to know that for the quiz, which is also up on Canvas right now. So today we're going to look at the Safavids and the Mughals, and then we're going to eventually bridge from those into everywhere else next week, mainly Russia. So with that being said, let's look at the Safavids. So previously in Persia, we had a couple different major things happening. We had Mahmud, who came around right after Muhammad and essentially ran the Nazvid Empire. After that, we have Hulegu, so Genghis Khan's son, comes in through here, and he eventually runs the Ilkhanate. And then at the end, we have someone that we briefly talked about a while ago, but we haven't really talked about since, and that's Timur, who otherwise known as Tamerlane. So Tamerlane runs the Timur dynasty, and essentially his goal was to reunite everything back under what he viewed was Genghis Khan's reincarnation. He literally thought that he was the next Genghis Khan, that he was him in the future, and he was him reborn. His goal was to amass an empire the same size and to essentially go on a killing spree that was about equal. Now, he doesn't come even close, but when he tries to, it kind of gives you an idea of what type of person he was aspiring to be. So not exactly your model human being during this time period, but also not exactly someone who's going to be timid. He's going to extend out the Persian Empire both to the east and the west. He doesn't get very much farther north, but he does start to spread out and get into parts of the Arabian Peninsula. He conquers Baghdad. He conquers all the way out further to the east coast and gets over through Kabul. So he does extend out the empire quite a bit. Now, after Timur comes around the Safavids. And let's take a second to respect the fact that the Safavid emblem is the lion and the sun. And on top of that, he's also got a sword, right? So the Manchus had a dragon, but this lion has a sword. So in all honesty, way cooler here. So that logo for the Safavids is actually going to be used for quite some time. And on top of that, it actually gets used by the Iranian state from 1973 all the way to 1979. But following the Islamic Revolution, which we will talk about much later on in the course, that eventually does get removed. So here we go.
One of Suleiman's greatest rivals was to the east, the empire of the Persian Safavids. This was a Muslim enemy whose rival creed made them fierce antagonists of the Ottomans for centuries.
The Safavids were also Turkic in their ethnic origins, and indeed spoke Turkish as a language of daily life. But they were moving into the Muslim world, unlike the Ottomans who were moving into the West.
So for the Ottoman Empire, they formed sort of the boundaries, the easternmost boundaries of the Ottoman realm.
The Safavid dynasty was Shiite Muslims, bitter rivals to the Sunni Ottomans.
According to the Shiites, a leader had to be designated by his predecessor and had to be of the family of Muhammad. According to the Sunni view, it was not designation that was necessary, and a person could be a leader of the community without being a direct descendant of Muhammad.
This challenge to legitimacy is the basis of the Shiite-Sunni split. a bitter division that still separates the Muslim world to this day.
And I would say the Ottomans never really thought of themselves so much as Sunni until the Safavids came forth as this rival Shi'i. So the Safavids developed a rival ideology to the Ottomans, which then became an occasion for war over, of course, what wars are usually fought over. Wars are fought over land, over wealth, over territory, over prestige. And the Safavids waged a war of ideology in eastern Anatolia, which was always, for the Ottomans, the most worrisome part. The terrain is difficult to conquer, difficult to control.
The Safavid military was formidable, but there were cultural rivals to the Ottomans as well.
They were great patrons of the arts. I think we know them more for their artistic patronage than of their great conquests and laws and systems and administration. When you look at Isfahan, it is the most beautiful city in the world, and that is the Safavid city, it's the Safavid capital. But it doesn't give you the same sense of power that the Ottoman Empire had, or the Ottoman capital had. It's a different sense of power. It's more eloquent, perhaps, more precious in its decoration and its ceremonial spaces. It's a totally different aspect of Islam.
So, as you can see, there's this bitter rivalry between the Safavids and the Ottomans. Now, we talked about a lot of the battles that the two of them got into yesterday without really talking about this group, right? So when it comes to the battles between the two of them, they're almost always going to be because of this religious split. So the Safavids are ruled by shahs, not sultans. So literally the ruler of the religious community is also the ruler of the king, or of the empire, sorry, he is also a king. The founder was Shah Ismail I. He's going to be the first one to kind of really take off within it. And he unified Tamerlane's old empire. So again, he's looking to kind of redo what Timur started, which again just kind of shows who his inspiration here is, right? So he's attempting to reunify Genghis Khan's old Ilkhanate down there.